Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 2009 Maserati Quattroporte Sport GT S. Up front is a 4.7 liter V8, and down below is a 6-speed automatic transmission. Now, I am super excited to be driving this Maserati because it's the first Maserati I've ever driven. And so I am here to try to bring you the most diverse collection of vehicles on YouTube. And so today we are checking Maserati off the list. But if you'd like to share your diverse vehicle with me, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. You can fill it out, whatever. Let's get back to the 4.7. I have a feeling it's going to be good. Oh. Oh, come on. Oh, it is so good. So this is a 4.7 liter V8 that was designed by Ferrari. I haven't reviewed a Ferrari yet on the channel, but this is the closest I've gotten so far. It is glorious. It makes 440 horsepower, and you will enjoy every little bit of it. It makes such a fantastic noise, which is also helped out by the GTS's exhaust, which was exclusive. So it's such a great driving experience. Like I said, paired to it is a 6-speed automatic, and you might scoff at that immediately, think, oh, you know, dated 6-speed, whatever. But it was actually tuned for the GTS by an old Formula 1 driver that had driven for Tyrrell and Jordan and Ferrari, and it's actually really responsive. It is a ZF transmission, and I've been really enjoying it. Driving it around town, not in sport mode, you might as well be driving a mail truck. It is horrendous, but as soon as you put it into sport mode, it changes the car completely, and that to me was really impressive. So this also is a more modern transmission. It is a torque converter, where the older transmissions were single clutches, which weren't great and kind of gave them a bad stigma about 6 speeds from Maserati, but this is a completely different design. It used to be a transaxle, it's no longer a transaxle. So if you have that stigma from the early 2000s of, oh, Maserati 6 speeds aren't good, I highly recommend trying one of these. I think your opinion might change. Last but not least about the drivetrain, of course, the Quattroporte is rear-wheel drive. So how does it feel to actually drive the Quattroporte as a total package? It's really good when you're on it. When you're actually on it, giving it the beans, you know, revving the engine out, it's very happy in that state. If you try to drive this around on the street normally to your office job, whatever it might be, the car's gonna hate you, and you're probably gonna end up hating the car. It has a very stiff ride. It's a very sporty ride, but very stiff. The controls are a little, you know, unforgiving, but when you wanna go and you let it go, then everything starts to make sense, and that's where this car really shines. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 4 gauges and a screen. Off to the left, I have my fuel and speedometer, which does go above 185. And off to the right, we have the tachometer and coolant temperature, as well as in the center, I do get a little screen, which 2009 was pretty early to have a screen in the gauge cluster outside of luxury cars. Now, this is a luxury car. This was originally priced above $140,000, but it is nice to get that added information. On the steering wheel on the left, I have my volume, voice commands, and phone options, and off to the right, I have my skip track, source, and mute. These buttons kind of stick out like a sore thumb. They really remind me of the TVR. Off to the left, we do have a climate control vent, as well as like our headlight switches, fog lights, gas cap release, trunk release, and your headrest release. Then moving on to the door, the power mirrors are sort of awkwardly pointed at you. Kind of an interesting setup there. And then of course we have the power windows. Moving into the center, we do have 2 climate control vents, as well as a Maserati analog clock. I love analog clocks in cars. I think it's such a cool centerpiece, and Maserati does a really good job. Although it is an oval, which is slightly odd, but Maserati is slightly odd, so I welcome that with open arms. Then we do have an aftermarket stereo because most radios from this era were pretty garbage and don't keep up with modern tech. Surrounding that radio, we do have several buttons. So off to the left, we do have that sport mode. That is going to drastically change how the car drives, like I mentioned with the transmission. But then I previously thought this was traction control. This is actually ice mode. So it will cut the revs and start you off in second gear, that sort of thing, so you don't slip on ice, which is cool, but it definitely looks like the traction control button I'm used to. Then we do have park off, and then we have MSP off, which that is finally the traction control. Off to the right, we have our lock and unlock buttons. Kind of interesting that it's two separate ones. Then we have our raise and lowering for the rear sunshade. Then we do have the climate controls. So I do get dual zone, which is really, really nice for 2009. These buttons seem a little bit dated, but that's okay. They work, they're straightforward, and I have no other complaints about it. Then we do have the hazard switch, and moving into the center, we have the shifter. The shifter has a nice little carbon accent on the top, and I really, really like it. Put it over, put it into sport mode, and you're gonna have a lot of fun shifting your own gears, which is really how this vehicle was intended to be driven. Then I do have a power parking brake off to the left. Kind of early to have a power parking brake. It's very commonplace now, but in 2009, not so much. And then off to the right, I do have a cigarette lighter and an ashtray that open up. Then we do have two cup holders, so we will do a big friggin' bottle test here in the Maserati Quattroporte Sport GTS. And unfortunately it fails. I could have told you that years ago, but alas, we still have to try it. But we're actually not done with our drink situation, because opening up the center console, there is a spot to heat your cups inside of the center console. Is this super practical and useful? Absolutely not. But it's super cool and exciting to see in a car like this. Now we gotta talk about the seats. The seats are really comfortable. I actually am pleasantly enjoying them, especially being a bigger guy. They're rather friendly to me. However, something that's really, really dumb is that they are cooled, they are heated, and they are massaging. But the cooled and massaging button around the bottom is so nearly unreachable by the driver. You have to specifically know where these buttons are, which is just so, it seems like an afterthought. It must have been. But I can't complain about the actual seat comfort at all. However, speaking of seats, we do have back seats, so let's go do a back seat review. All right, so we're in the back of the 2009 Maserati Quattroporte Sport GTS. And a couple of things to note. First of all, knee room's good, head room's good. I'm 5'11", I'm not a small guy, and I fit back here pretty well. In the center, I do have some interesting buttons. So I do have two climate control vents, which is very nice. Some cars don't give climate control vents in the back, and that is a terrible decision. It also says Maserati in the nice carbon fiber, which is cool. But then I do have some interesting buttons. So I have lock and unlock buttons back here, as well as my rear sunshade operation. So you can control that from the front or the back. But the coolest thing is found on the door, where there's actually a power adjusting for the seat, and you can recline, which is really, really cool. And you don't see that often in even luxury cars. So definitely a very, very cool feature. I also do have a pop-out ashtray and cigarette lighter, and we do have a little center console with some pop-out cup holders as well. But let's hop out. We'll take a quick look at the trunk and cargo space, and then we'll talk about the looks. So we're on the back of the Maserati. You can pop it here, little button. It has a decent amount of trunk space, not crazy for this segment, at least in terms of big sedans. You do have that wall up there. Those rear reclining seats do impede on it a little bit, but overall, not that bad. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and I like the way that this car looks. I'm not a huge fan of the front. Kind of reminds me of like a Guppy, but it is miles ahead of what Maserati used to be doing in their styling department. So I will welcome that with open arms, the design of this car. And it also is really, really long. It's actually longer than a Chevy Tahoe, believe it or not. Although looking at this side profile, I would say I have to believe it. So with all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think, not only driving my first Maserati, but kind of the modern Maserati to have? The Quattroporte Sport GTS is a rather limited production vehicle, but it's also one of the best to have. I personally have been very, very hesitant to review a Maserati because the modern vehicles in my mind are just not very good. They've been making the same ones for several years. They're now Chrysler products, which don't have the best build quality or reliability, so I tend to try to stay away from them. However, this is the Maserati to have. In the early 2000s, Maseratis were not great. In the 2010s, they're not really that great. This is sort of a golden year and golden era because it's before Chrysler stepped in, but still modern, and it has that Ferrari-derived V8. It's such a wonderful driving experience. The only thing that's really gonna hurt is going to be the maintenance, but that's gonna be any car. This is pretty reliable in terms of the engine and transmission, which can't totally be said about all of Maserati's current products. The main thing I will tell you about Maseratis is that A, they're fantastic to drive. At least this one has been amazing, and I wish I could just put an aux cord right from the exhaust into my ears to go to sleep at night. But do your research. Do your research when looking at a Maserati. Do not go to a used car dealer because they have a Maserati convertible on the lot and say, oh, I want a Maserati, I'll take that home. Do your research, go on the old forum posts, read the old articles, figure out what's going to be reliable, what's going to be the best option for you. Because there are a lot of Maseratis out there in the world that will hurt your bank account a lot more than this one. This car, although it was the most expensive one back in the day and still to buy on the used market, is the most expensive Quattroporte trim level, it is going to be the cheapest in terms of maintenance and heartache down the road. So expensive is cheaper, cheaper is expensive, topsy-turvy, the world's upside down, cats and dogs living together, Maserati. That's what makes this car so special. And so I am so thankful to have been given the chance to drive this car, to experience the Maserati brand, and to really experience the best one. This is the one to buy. Really don't look at other cars. They will hurt your head and your heart. This is the one. And so I will leave you at the end of this video, after thanking my good friend Tim for letting me take it out. Thank you so much, Tim. But I will leave you with God's soundtrack. Take care, guys.